And a very special episode of Stuff That Matters. We are back again in person, and Nathan Heineck, our executive director here at New Hope's office for the first time ever. Nathan, welcome to the pod. But our guest today is Officer Michael Chavis, police lieutenant here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Officer Chavis, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad that I could be here.
All right. So, Officer Chavis, why don't you start, like I said before, we're really excited about this conversation because, again, I think the intersection of mental health and law enforcement is a conversation that is happening. It's been happening for a long time. And I think there's some really awesome and exciting kind of advancements on all sides, on both sides. So, but we've known each other for a while, and obviously New Hope here in Rock Hill, our relationship with Rock Hill PD, I think has been really, really strong as of late. But oftentimes we only see each other during our worst days, which is sometimes, how the community interacts with police. But you guys do so much more, and there's so much more to that. So we're excited to kind of unpack all that, get to know you more, and get to know the folks that you represent more. So why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about your story? How did you come to wear what you're wearing and do what you're doing?
One, I want to say I am fortunate in my role that I do get to meet you guys outside of normal calls for service or having to come here in case, something's happening. So I am blessed where I get to meet everybody, when you're having good days. So we get to meet each other on a different level and we can actually get down into stuff. So my story began in high school. I was a student athlete. I was enjoying soccer and track, and I didn't even really know what I wanted to do with my future. But I had a teacher who invested in me. And so I decided, I had strengths in, just getting to know people and helping people out. That was my thing. So she encouraged me to get a look at teaching. So I got a look at teaching. I said, okay. So I joined the teacher cadet program. In high school, I started helping tutor a young man. He was visually challenged and hearing impaired. And so his name was Hashim. I would basically go with him to class when I was a senior, and I didn't have any classes, and then we'd meet in the library and I'd help tutor him. And so it's kind of a passion of mine to teach. And so I was like, all right. So I came up to Winthrop, began my college career at Winthrop, decided I wanted to be a teacher, and I was like, all right, here we go. Well, right as I was getting ready to graduate, I was doing an internship. And during that internship at one of the local elementary schools, I would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then the next week it was Tuesday, Thursday. There was a young man in the class, and he wore the same outfit every day I was there. Didn't matter which week it was. And so it was third grade. The teacher's like, hey, he's starting to get behind. Can you work with him one-on-one? And so I, sat down with him, and we would talk. And he would get distracted real easy. He had a hard time focusing. And then we bonded over wrestling. He was big into wrestling. And so I started, talking about wrestling, and we would incorporate wrestling. Then we would do work, more wrestling, do work. And so I asked the teacher one day, hey, kind of what's going on? Can you tell me his backstory? And what she told me was that when he was in kindergarten, his mother lost custody. He was living with grandmother. He stayed with grandmother, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Mother came back into the picture. She got custody back. When she got custody back, well, she was a prostitute. She was an addict. And so her pimp was prostituting her basically to support her habit.
Sure.
He was getting money. They were living out of a van. So this young man had no clothes. He had no stability. So school was all he had. Well, that was a pivotal point for me because that's when I was like, you know what? Man, I want to do more than teach right now because this is something that has just opened my eyes up to what, people are experiencing. And seeing how some of my high school friends have been impacted by drugs and addiction, I decided to become a cop. And so I spent my first several years just going after, the street level drug dealers. I was entranced with, hey, if you're going to go out here and provide stuff that's going to harm people and ruin families, I'm going to try and find you, and get it off the street, and I'm going to lock you up. And I said I was going to do 5 years, and it was 8 years, and it was 10 years, and here I am 23 and a half years later, and I'm still doing it. And all I got to do is 25 and can retire. And so the decision's coming up. Am I going to keep on doing this or what? But that's how it got me here to Rock Hill. A lot of stuff has happened along the way where it was like, all right, here's a pivotal moment. What do you want to do with your career? So I was on street crimes. I was a detective. I became a supervisor on patrol, then a supervisor over our jail, our technology, and then finally I got in the role I am now, which is our executive officer to the chief and public information officer. And so it's been quite rewarding for me. I mean, policing, everybody knows you don't get into it for the money. Money's
Right.
great, but this is something you have to do that gives you that intrinsic reward.
Right. Oh, I love that story. Okay. And again, one of the reasons why we wanted Nate here, and so Nate joined the New Hope team a year ago, and I tell Nate this, but Nate was kind of an odd choice for his role. But I think everybody at New Hope was an odd choice for their role, and it all works. It's kind of in the New Hope DNA. Because, pretty somewhere in Nate's resume, pretty up high, is that he was a police officer, and police officer and therapist, or police officer and mental health, or overseeing a large mental health thing like this don't always go hand in hand. Because one of the things that we try to make sure is that we're not a detention facility. Right now, again, we serve young people whose trauma leads them to behaviors that could lead to detention facilities, and we might have some of the trappings of that, right? I mean, we're a locked facility, and kids can't just come and go freely. But from a purpose standpoint, we consider that to be very, very different. But then when I met and spoke with Nate, it was just a perfect kind of blend of things. But again, I think his background is kind of fascinating, and so I'd love for you guys to kind of just share some similarities and stories, again, because you guys are both at the intersection of human services and police. But I love your story, and I love the inspiration for what got you into service. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts, Nate?
So it's been very interesting for me, having interacted. I interact a lot with Captain Grayson.
Yep.
He's kind of my point person of, hey, when I got something going on or I need to smooth something over, he's kind of the person I've gone to. But it's been very interesting to learn because coming from Indiana, some of the stuff's still the same, crime's still the same. But some of the rules and how you guys operate is very different, especially the Carolinas with the community college model versus a physical site of the training academy, completely different.
That's right.
So that to me, or the hours and all the different things, but with those conversations with Captain Grayson, it's been very interesting to hear how there are some of the same cross sections. My understanding is you guys are working hand in hand with NAMI for the CIT program.
Oh, absolutely.
How can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So that's one of the things I love about our department is we have guys like Captain Grayson. When he was Lieutenant Grayson over our training, he's very forward thinking. And one of the things that I'll bring up before the CIT was we had an incident where we had someone who was hard of hearing. Well, if you have a traffic stop, it can make things difficult. So Captain Grayson, being forward thinking, he went ahead and he called in people that could educate us on how to communicate with hard of hearing and deaf people. And so we got quick cards, we learned a little bit of sign language, and then 6 months later, our state academy rolled out, hey, we got to know this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the CIT crisis intervention training, we've been hosting it at the Rock Hill Police Department for years now, and we partner with NAMI. The first time we did it, NAMI actually brought in people with different disorders that they could come in and share their experiences and say, hey, if you get out with me and I'm manic, this is what you should expect. If you get out with me and I'm suffering from bipolar depression, this is what you should expect, or my anxiety. And I mean, they went and they just were so open and transparent about their lived experiences that it really opened some of our eyes to say, okay, this is how we deal with it. This is the triggers to avoid. This is what we need to do. And then we're doing that for a couple of years, and our academy now is pushing out mental health training.
Sure.
And so I'm very thankful to be at a department that is so forward thinking, that where we get that training and then we get NAMI to partner with us and actually bring in, because it's one thing to watch a video or have somebody tell you, but when you actually bring somebody in, the impact of it.
Right.
Because you now normalize that person of saying, okay, this is it. This is all I got to do. This is how I can help them, because this person is telling me exactly what I need to do, where I didn't have that knowledge before. I didn't know how to be compassionate about what they're experiencing because I didn't understand it. And so, yeah, that is something that you just cannot put a price tag on.
Yeah.
When did the CIT stuff roll out in Rock Hill?
Oh, gosh. I'm going to say we started doing that at least 8-9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were just at an event recently at the Hornets game where some of the CMPD, some of the Charlotte folks talked around there, because they've got a pretty, I think, robust CIT thing too. But relatively speaking, probably in the last decade, I mean, that's kind of a new shift in police, right? The expectations. I'm curious, what have you seen? How did the culture but and you can, whenever I ask you a question, you can kind of think about Rocky, or you can kind of think broadly just about what you know in law enforcement. Like, how was that received across the board? Because I'm sure there were some people who were like, I get it, this is awesome. And then there's some people who were like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, now I have to be a therapist and how did that
that's cool
get integrated?
I like what you say therapist, because that's one thing that, we try and tell our people, you're not a therapist.
Right.
You don't have the training. You'll never be. What we need to be seen as is we need to be seen as interventionists and advocates. Depending on what the call is and what we're doing and we're responding to and have to do, you're out there to intervene to make sure nobody's harmed and nobody's hurt. But then you're an advocate because you want to advocate for this person to get the help they need. And whether that's just us being on scene or us working with the mobile crisis unit that we can get called out, who can actually do a better diagnosis to find out exactly what's going on. That's our role, because
Right.
we cannot provide the therapy because we don't have the background. But we've got to be out there, we've got to be open-minded, and then we've got to make sure that we get somebody the help they need so that 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, we see them later and they're like, hey, I'm doing great now. I had a switch of medications, or I just had, a bad day, bad couple of days.
Right.
You coming out, listening, providing me that assistance was what I needed. But no, as far as the training goes, for your question, when it first was rolling out and, it comes out as CIT and then you see crisis intervention training, you're like, okay, what is this? Because we're cops, we're always going to look into things, we read it and it's like, crisis. What's the crisis? So is it, are we running into a burning building with the fire department saving people?
Right.
Is there a standoff? And so then we keep reading more and you find out it's related to mental health and it's like, okay, what is this? But then you go in and like I said, when we go into our training room, and right up front we have our NAMI representatives and we have tables with name tags for our guests. And what I mean by our guests is our people who come in and share their lived experiences. You're like, okay, what do we have here? And after that first session, it was like, hey guys, this is it. This is what you would want. It's not some cookie cutter PowerPoint that we're watching. I mean, I don't even remember much on a PowerPoint. On the PowerPoint, it was just a brief introduction of what we're there for. And then when it talked about some common disorders we might see and just some symptoms,
Right.
that was kind of it. And that thing went off. And then we just shared information back and forth with our panel.
And so it was received pretty quickly, pretty positively. Do you think that's just because there actually were so many years of police interacting with the mental health space, but not really knowing what the heck? Like, it was almost like, oh, thank goodness somebody's actually coming to us with.
I think so. For me, it was. I mean, we've been serving, mental health pickup orders
Forever.
in the past.
Right.
We've gone out to welfare checks in the past. We've done some of this. And I would say, back when I first started, we would do it maybe once, twice a month for your shift. And now we're doing it multiple times a day. It's become more frequent.
It being a mental health related call
A
out.
mental health,
Okay.
either it's a welfare check or we have a mental health pickup order we need to go serve.
Okay.
Or we go in to assist the mobile
Yeah.
crisis unit with something.
Okay.
That's actually picked up.
Yeah.
That trend is going up. But having it, a decade ago, almost middle of my career, it seemed like it was at the right time
Yeah.
of seeing that, all right, because it's already been happening, but now it's picking up and we hit it, early enough on. So now we're where we need to be in educating our officers. Our senior officers are now educated so they can translate to our younger officers. And we bring the CIT training around periodically to our own training facility so that we can keep, even our newer officers that we hired a few months ago, now you got it.
Yeah. And so for folks who might not know, we know because we're in this world, but if you could give the elevator speech for what is CIT. So 20 years ago in a pre-CIT world, what did the training look like if you went out and you got a call and there's an adult male running around in the middle of the street yelling at the sky and seems very agitated? How was that handled 20 years ago versus maybe 5 years ago in a post-CIT world?
So prior to having all the training and understanding what we need to, services we can get and provide now because they have gotten better, you would basically go to a call and it's almost as if the person's not endangering their own life or endangering the lives of others, threatening to harm themselves, threatening to harm somebody else. You don't arrest people because they have a mental health disorder. That's another thing people don't understand. Like, it's not arrestable. We don't arrest you for having, something go on in your life and experiencing a crisis. But we go out there because we're not clinicians, we're not therapists. There was not a lot we can do. We just had to make sure that everybody was going to be safe. But now, having the mobile crisis unit, having the training, we can actually think more about, all right, what can we do? What can we find out's going on? You know, you do have that person running around, all right, all right, let's cordon off the area, especially if they're running in the street. Protect the street, protect them in the street. And now let's get the mobile crisis unit. Let's find somebody who can start talking to them, get them, on a hook so that we can reel them in and find out what the crisis is and how best to get them to help. And so it kind of slowed everything down to where it just wasn't like, hey, go out there, ask a couple questions, and yeah, we can do something. No, we can't. Now it's ask the right questions, get the right answers, get the right people involved, and get them to the right location to get the help.
Interesting. Yeah, so you've kind of become almost a first responder care coordinator for some of those calls, as opposed to just, hey, we need to figure out if there's imminent risk. And if there's not imminent risk, it's kind of not our role, is how it used to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in some sad situations, if it just escalates to the point of danger, you got to intervene in a different way.
That's right. Yeah.
As well.
We try and, because then if they're a risk to themselves or they're trying to harm somebody else, then we have more of a duty to protect. And so we try and stay hands off, because one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to ever escalate a situation. And de-escalation training kind of goes hand in hand with, mental health crisis, because the more that you close the gap on somebody getting their personal space or you touch them, we realize that that's a trigger. So you only do that in extreme cases where you have to do that to protect people. And so yeah, prior to going out there, you just stayed back unless it got to that point. Well, then you had to go and grab somebody, put them in handcuffs, detain them, sit them down, and be like, all right, you got to go with us. We're going to take you somewhere. Somebody's going to talk to you.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of how it, happened. Now it's evolved a lot better to where, all right, we can stay back a lot more. We get the right person in place to ask the right questions. Then we're going to have the right services provided.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, you've mentioned a couple times, and for people that don't understand what a mobile crisis unit is.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the mobile crisis unit is basically a group, and why I say group is because they're on call, just like other jobs that have on-call people. And the mobile crisis unit is actually originates through the South Carolina Department of Mental Health, and ours kind of runs through the Catawba Mental Health Center here. And so they may go out or we may call them. And what I mean by that is sometimes they get calls and they go out, they call us for assistance. We might go out, get a call, and then we call in. And so we get in touch with the on-call person. They will go out. They are better trained at diagnosing, figuring out what's going on, asking the right question, knowing the right services, and doing that sit-down interview with the person, their family, their friends, whoever's there, so that they can handle it. A lot of times, and you've seen it all around the nation with videos of things of police need to have social workers with them. So police, well, this is it. We're doing it here now, and people don't realize and know it. And that's one thing I'm also proud of for us here, is that you hear all that stuff, and when people ask questions, do y'all not have social workers on the police force that can go out? No, we actually call the mobile crisis unit. Those are the people. You can get no one better to do that. They are trained, they are ready, they are here, and they are a 24-hour service.
That's awesome that you guys have an actual unit for that. Because a lot of my experience has been, hey, they'll get a grant funding or something, and they'll have a social worker on, which does a lot to help some of these calls, but then they're not necessarily available 24/7 or these types of things.
Wow.
That makes it very hard because, like you said, you're the interventionist, you're the advocate. You're going to go secure the scene, make sure everyone's safe, and then allow that social worker or that LPC or whoever it is to come in and provide that level of expertise to help people out.
Or LMFT, don't leave us out.
Sorry.
It's terrible.
My mistake.
This guy is such I don't know what's going on here. Well, and I think, and this is my opinion, I think some of that dialogue that's been happening around we need less police, we need more social workers, as a person in the mental health space who also works with young people who have a high propensity towards risk and danger. I always thought that was a dumb conversation, and sometimes we as a nation have dumb conversations that have truth in them, but you have to unpack a lot of layers of, I think, misguidedness to get to the truth. And I'm a big both and guy, not an either or guy. And I think that's an example of a both and. It's not we need social workers and not cops, and it's not we need cops and not social workers. It's we need the right team at the right time for the right thing. But I do, part of why we want, we're excited to have you on is because some of these things there's some really positive evolutions in all of this and how we all kind of take care of each other as a society. And it's not these extreme defund all of this. It's again, right thing, right time, right training for the right situation.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's the both and. Rock Hill, our community is very supportive of our police department.
Yeah.
We have a strong community. We engage and invest in our community. One thing I always tell people is, we just don't work here 12 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, and then go home somewhere else. We live here. All right. Our families work here. Our children go to school here. So this is our place too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's our place we're invested in. So know that everything that we do is for the betterment of Rock Hill, because we want to see it be a place for our families, for us.
That's awesome.
And yeah, when you say both and, no, I think that a lot of times those conversations, those buzz phrases that came in, that social workers need to respond. They do, but also cops as well. And so what you got to say is you got to have the team. It's got to be both.
Yep.
Because a social worker or one of the mobile crisis unit people, they can't go out there by themselves if you have somebody who's armed,
Right.
wanting to hurt other people, or who's being not even armed but being violent and volatile. Because you got to have a protective layer there, and that's what we'll be. And like
Right.
I said, we don't go out with the mindset now of, okay, if this person's experiencing a mental crisis and they're going to be violent, they're going to jail, because that does not give them the services. It is like, we're going to go out there, they're being violent. We're going to try and let, the evolution happen from the questions being asked
Right.
by our clinician, by, our interventionist who's there, and we're just going to make sure they're safe and everybody else is safe, including the person we're there for.
Right.
Because we're there for them as
Right.
well. And so that is what should be looked at, is we need to make sure that there 24 hours a day, there's somebody that can respond with the police to go out there and do the question, do the interviews, to guide to the services, because when it's, through Catawba Mental Health, the South Carolina Department of Mental Health, they've got those direct connections on who can provide the best services beyond this one night, this one day where we're dealing with you in these few hours. And so, yeah, it's both and.
Right.
We need us both.
Yeah, that dialogue sometimes happens in our space around, New Hope obviously being known as a place that provides a lot of residential treatment. And there's advocacy groups who, again, I love their spirit. They want what's best for kids. But people need both safety and care, and a lot of times, obviously, safety needs to come first, just kind of a basic Maslow's hierarchy pyramid here, where, again, for our young people, they've gone through so much trauma and chaos in their life that they are prone to repeating that. And you can't just high five and therapy your way through that until you give some baseline sense of just safety or security. Or again, if folks are struggling with like active addiction, you're not going to be able to get to the root of, you have to kind of triage these things. And so, yeah, you guys are probably triaging in real time, but that social worker is not going to be effective if somebody's brandishing a knife and it's just not. So again, it's both and that's the best thing. Again, let's handle the short-term crisis, but then let's get this person on a path to not repeat this crisis. So again, I think that's just one of the best evolutions in our society over the last decade that maybe doesn't get a lot of shine, because negative stuff usually gets more shine, but I think that's just a great positive evolution.
No, you're right. Sensationalism does generate,
Yeah.
The attention.
Yeah.
So, you think about when you're rendering first aid. You show up and you come into an office and you see somebody down on the ground. The first thing they tell you about is lock out, tag out, make sure the scene is safe before you do any first aid.
Yeah.
And so we get there, we need to make sure the scene is safe. We got the mobile crisis unit personnel. Now they're going to do the mental health first aid.
Yeah.
And so it just goes hand in hand with other things we're already doing in society.
It sounds like Rock Hill's got a great culture, and I've sensed that in my 4 years here, a uniquely good culture. Maybe, and I'm sure there's a lot, but like you guys just seem to have a really great team, and something probably comes from some great leadership. Again, have you sensed? Is there anybody who said, like, have you had people? Because we've had this as we've tried to evolve New Hope a little bit. I sometimes say, listen, and once you start establishing a good culture should push some people out. And it should kind of push if you have a strong culture, people just know, okay, well, I'm not a part of this culture, and that's okay. If you don't want to be a part of what we're doing, you can do something somewhere else. Is there anybody that says, I miss the old ways, I miss 1980s policing, I think I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to be compassionate necessarily when I show up?
When I first got hired, even, I mean, you're talking.
And I'm not trying to date you. I threw out
No,
80s.
no,
I'm just saying, have you had anybody who's just not on board
I
with
was
this?
born in '80, so.
Okay, all right.
But no, when I first got hired, we always heard about, policing back then. I mean, we had some very senior guys. I started working with detectives that were detectives in '60s and '70s. This is a whole different evolution. I mean, you're talking about evidence, DNA, the technology changing, everything.
Sure.
Cars, vehicles changing. Like, when I first got here, they talked about hot seating cars, which means I come in on day shift, park my car at 6 o'clock, don't even turn it off. The guy who comes in at 6 p.m. gets in that hot car, and he's going around with the same car. We don't do that anymore. Everybody's got their own
Interesting.
car.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of changes, and so you hear that over time. What I will say is when it comes to the mental health part of things, we didn't really hear that. And I think the
Good.
reason why
That's
is
awesome.
because that was something that we hadn't been fully trained on. We hadn't been like fully immersed in to know what's going on with people to say, all right, this is triggers, this is hooks, this is how to reel them in, this is how to understand it better. No, more or less it was like old stuff that like pursuits. There used to be a lot more pursuits. Now you realize it's a safety issue. We can't pursue everybody. Some people we're going to go catch later. So that's kind of stuff you heard about
Okay.
back in the day. And maybe like interview tactics or something. Like
Okay.
you stare at somebody, intimidate
Some
them.
style
that
stuff.
doesn't work.
Okay.
No, you catch more flies with honey. So that kind of evolved.
Okay.
The people who didn't get with that, you won't make a good detective if you don't know how to interview.
Yeah.
You stare at somebody and try and just look at them intently, but people are not going to talk anymore. They're just going to look away.
Yeah.
And in pursuits, no, safety, our safety, our community is more important than some of our pursuits. So therefore, we weigh that and change it where somebody might be like, man, I'd love to go to Georgia Highway Patrol where we can pursue all the time. But no, you can't.
Well, and I think, and maybe and again, some of this is the blending of like Hollywood ignorance and reality, right? Which I will admit to all of those. But I think maybe the lack of resistance to the mental health evolution also just emphasizes that most people who become police officers are getting there to serve the public good. And so they viewed that as another tool in their toolbox to do that mission. And I think maybe the misperception that gets promulgated sometimes is that people are getting into the force for power and control and authority and punishment and stuff like that, when actually, if that's not the majority of people's goals, then they welcome this kind of stuff because they're like, yeah, I want to just serve my community. So thanks for some extra tools to do that.
Yeah, I don't think in my time here, I will say, because I sit on interview panels for our applicants as
Okay.
well. I do a lot of training. That's where my education background is now. I do a lot of Training for different subjects that we have to train our officers in. So I get to deal with a lot of our new hires through the processes. I can't remember one time where I've sat around a trainee or tried to teach them something and got the impression that this person is there to like punish or just
Right.
think I'm gonna lock everybody up. No, most people, policing for them is a calling. Some of them is a family calling where a grandparent, a parent,
Right.
somebody aunt, they were policing, so they want to do it. But most of them see it as a calling to help and to serve.
Right.
And this is another avenue that we can now take to better help people. Even when I lock people up, when I was on patrol, when I was on street crimes, as a detective, they're still a human being.
Right.
And if one of my relatives was to get locked up, I want them to be treated like any other human being.
Right.
And so you still have to respect them, explain everything to them, and then you move on. Like you say, hey, if I see you again later, I hope everything's working out for you.
Right.
Now, maybe it'll be better, but you got to be held accountable, so here it is.
Right.
But yeah, I just think that most people are like that in our department that seek law enforcement jobs is I'm here to help.
Yeah.
And whatever that help actually is, I'm here to help.
Nate, was that kind of your experience too?
Yeah, it was interesting because you were very quick to point to what your why was when you were giving us your background,
Yeah.
what drove you there, and I tend to think of as my time as I knew the guy that, hey, he wanted to go after the drunk drivers because of X, Y, and Z in his past. Mine was a duty to serve, but I also had some family that was in law enforcement, so that was my why. And you see those things that it draws you to it. And one of the most positive things I ever had happen was an individual that I, like you, treated with respect when I, had to take him to jail, and you don't know how they're going to help you later down the road. Not necessarily saying that they're going to, snitch on someone or anything like that, but help you out with a situation like, man, I'm trying to find this person. You don't know when that contact is, especially when a community even the size of Rock Hill, that's going to turn around and help you later on, because that individual, that Joe Smith that you arrested on Friday, 2 weeks from now, he got out, bonded out, whatever, but you're looking for something and he goes, hey, Mike was solid with me. I'm going to help him out here. Or I see something going on. I'm going to let him know, because you treat people with that respect. The kinesics stuff that's going on with interviewing, it's just been very positive. But I would say that most people that I've come across that do have that power dynamic or that kind of thing, they don't last long. They don't last very long. They're gone within.
It's like our business, yeah.
Yeah, they're gone within. They don't make it through field training. They don't make it through the FTO program. They don't make it through the academy. You get some, but you have to put yourself through the academy, the field training, all the things that you're dealing with day in, day out. If you don't have a strong why and a passion to be there, like you said with the calling, you're going to run out. You're going to burn out very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's such a hard job. It's such a hard job. It's a thankless job. Yeah. One thought I had, so shifting a little bit from mental health, although again, all these worlds kind of overlap, which again, I think is another good evolution of society, as we're all realizing all this stuff bleeds together. Kind of addiction stuff and homelessness dynamics. Again, I'm assuming like if I listed off mental health, homelessness, and drugs and said what percentage of your time pie do those three things take up in law enforcement? I'd assume quite a bit. I'm curious, what have you seen, whether in our community or broadly, trends around substance abuse and addiction dynamics in our community, and then homelessness dynamics in our community?
I'll say this. So it's very unique. We have the Community Engagement Unit at the Rock Hill Police Department. They focus on a lot of the things you were mentioning. They partner with CASH here, the Catawba Area Coalition for the Homeless. And so they partner with Pathways, and we try and get people resources yet again. We found that some people needed IDs. So we found a way to streamline them getting IDs so they can now get work, so they can get jobs, so that they can find a home, they can get a residence. And then every now and then you come across some people who would just not want to be attached to a permanent dwelling. So it's hit or miss. But when you mention addiction, what I want to say to that is the addiction is a unique item to unpack, because when we look at it, you would think, all right, so it's probably going to be, unemployed or homeless that are more prone to addiction. But we're seeing addiction now more widespread among everybody.
Sure.
I remember when I was in high school, and I went to high school in Orangeburg, which is 2 hours south of here. It wasn't nothing to smell marijuana to be prevalent. You could find marijuana, somebody had it. And then every now and then you would hear somebody having cocaine. Maybe somebody had even acid. I'm really digging.
Yeah.
But now in our high schools, what we're hearing about is the THC vapes. But the THC vapes are now laced with fentanyl, or some of the opioid and the pills. And so when we're talking about that being as addictive as they can be, and our high schoolers and even middle schoolers are finding a way to access these things, and they're so addictive so quickly that it's widespread among everybody. And so we're seeing that to where you might think, all right, addiction's only going to focus on this segment of society. It's actually not. It can be more widespread than what people actually believe, and it makes it harder to focus in on, because these pills, these opiates, and fentanyl itself is just finding its way into everything.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah, again, like the Narcan, like that was not a tool in the tool belt. That's a relatively new phenomenon that is it's both a miracle and a tragedy that has to exist, right? It's
absolutely. No, every officer has 2 doses of Narcan.
Okay.
So we got trained in how to use Narcan, but we also got trained on how to recognize an opioid overdose, so that they're using Narcan. But the cool thing about Narcan that most people don't know is, even if you come up to somebody and they show all the signs of overdosing, but it might be medical, if you administer Narcan, it's not going to have an adverse effect. So,
Okay.
yeah, so even if you misdiagnose because somebody
Right.
tells you they're overdosing, you get up there, they show all the signs.
So kind of when in doubt, use
Yeah.
it. And
One of the funny, jokingly, I don't want to make light of a tragic situation, but one of the jokes was that when we first came out with this was that folks were hitting diabetics with it. That was because a lot of the symptoms.
Oh, interesting.
Before the proper training was all in place, you were hitting diabetics with Narcan, so that was one of the things to explain to the public. It's not going to have any adverse side effects.
better more than less, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't hurt people, so that's why we carry it, that's why we have it. Us getting there as quick as we do for an overdose situation, while you've got an ambulance or a fire truck coming, they have some as well. We can go ahead and start administering that, but yeah, when I first started policing, you didn't think about Narcan. I tell you what I thought about was EpiPens. Some of our ball fields, we have great sports facilities here in Rock Hill, but we also have yellow jackets and walls and other things. And so kids are more, apt to get stung out there playing a sport and need that EpiPen. And so in my mind, it's like, man, we're responding, we don't have EpiPens.
Oh, interesting.
I think that would be great for EpiPens to be available or somewhere where we have them. But the Narcan is there, and we have that out, and so it's serving kind of a similar thing. You have something happen, boom, police can do this medical intervention to help save lives, and we've had successful
I'm sure.
deployments.
I don't know what your answer is going to be to this. I'm very curious, but we're actually working with some folks around some suicide prevention, a kind of a suicide prevention project. So we've been starting to get really deep into the 988 world, which for folks who don't know was, passed 4 years ago. I always say kind of came out very clunky and very slow, but is starting to seemingly try to start breaking through. But I still think actually the data shows that general public awareness rate of 988 hovers around 15 to 20%. So if you go into a restaurant and ask people what's 988, I think 2 out of 10 people might know. But it's a pretty effective, like the data on its success is pretty darn effective. And obviously the whole point of that was kind of what we're talking about. How do we separate criminal behavior from a mental health crisis? Sometimes those things overlap, but they don't absolutely overlap every time, right? Since 988 rolled out 4 years ago, are you guys seeing any difference in call volume around, because back in the day, people just called 911 for literally everything, and now we're trying to say, make a if this and that. So are you seeing any impact from 988? Do you still have the same amount of kind of suicidal calls? Does that?
Yeah, we do. We still see them. The welfare checks, we'll get those. But with 988, it kind of goes hand in hand with South Carolina Department of Mental Health Crisis Unit.
Okay.
Because when you call 988, it kind of triggers the same. Yeah, through them. So,
Okay.
So to say, all right, hey, here's what we've got going on. Let's work through this phone call, basically.
Okay.
And if they have to deploy the mobile crisis unit, then we get that call.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, maybe some of it is shifted away from us to them, but still our overall, like I said, welfare checks and assisting them to go out on certain things is still staying
Around the same.
Yeah, around the same. And maybe there's more that, we don't get privy of that, hey, this is going on behind the scenes with 988 that you guys just aren't getting to your dispatch.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Reach out and see.
Okay, that's it. Well, that's not all that surprising. Again, some of our premise is that 988 is kind of the best kept secret in the country to some degree, and I think it's confidential, obviously by design. And we actually connected with a 988 worker who used to work here actually, and she's been working with them for 3 years, and she does a lot of their text stuff because a lot of the kids prefer to do text or chat. And that is completely anonymous and completely non-trackable by design, which is good, but also kind of scary. So you can be anonymous. This person could be living. So you can't, obviously 911, if you call, kind of one of the instant things is let's find out where this person is, and 988 is a little bit separate. But hopefully as 988 continues to grow and break through to the culture, that we would see a decrease in mental health calls. Because again, I do think sometimes we ask a lot of our law enforcement, and I love that it feels like everybody's stepping up to the challenge. But if something is a true mental health crisis, if it can go just straight to a mental health resource first, that feels like it'd be a step in the right direction.
No, absolutely. If you can call 988 and work through the progression of the conversation, and whether you text, I'm a big proponent that everything should be text. I'm texting 911 here.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that comes in handy for our domestic violence victims, our assault victims.
I didn't know that.
Even if they're, heaven forbid, with some kind of active assailant, to be in a room texting 911. You text a live operator. That's the cool thing about it. It's not an automated like chat service you might get on like a website. It's a live person chatting you back and forth. And you work through that progression. And if you don't need law enforcement, it's somebody reaching out, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Where can I go? Where can I get the help? And then you take us out of the equation because we're not needed. That's fantastic. If it gets to the point where you say, hey, look, we need to send somebody out, let's have law enforcement escort them because they seem like they could be violent, or they said that they've done violence in the past. All right, we'll send law enforcement. But even still, if saying, hey, I just need somebody to come talk to me, they send 2 out, and they're like, yeah, we don't need anybody else, so the law enforcement can focus on other things. Yeah, that's great. That's the both and.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's just keep on layering more resources that are accessible and easy. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's good to know.
Bouncing off of the 988 point, do people text 911 if they're having thoughts of suicide or just having some sort of mental breakdown? Do you get texts like that where people just, like you said, need someone to talk to?
So I would have to contact 911 just to verify, because I don't want to
Right,
tell you
of
wrong.
course.
But I do know that people do text 911 for various things, so I'd imagine they would. And when we talk about texting in general, we're talking about our younger demographic anyway.
Right.
My first cell phone I got when I went off to college, it was a Motorola flip phone StarTAC. It pulled up antenna. I couldn't text on that. I'm just hoping. It's
the best of the best.
Yeah, a phone call. But now kids, your 8-year-olds are having, phones in their hands, a mini computer. They grow up on button mashing. And so that's what they're used to. I mean, they can swipe the text so fast and we don't even think about it.
Right.
So having that ability, I think, is going to be more useful in regards to that's what they know. That's what they know, because I do believe that if some of our youth called into a 911 center and they were talking to a human being on the phone, that's kind of more foreign to them, and they would feel more comfortable. And you can text and have that anonymity.
Yeah.
And so I think that also kind of is empowering somebody to say, yeah, I can text somebody, and it's less personal, but personal enough to get me help.
And there's also the piece of, you say you're involved in an active domestic violence situation.
Oh, yeah.
Texting rather than having to make a call when you need assistance is a huge thing that you don't have to actually engage in conversation. You can just say, hey, I'm...
Oh, it's awesome. I don't think I knew that I've learned that. That's amazing that we've evolved like that. It's fantastic.
A lot of people don't know that, but yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. You bring up a game app on your phone,
Yeah.
you're doing the argument, or, and then you get over to your text.
Yeah.
I'm texting my sister. No,
and then you bring up 911. You just swipe close out
Wow.
series, and I'm playing a game. Just leave me alone, and you go back to it. Keep it
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's cool. I learned that.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to touch on too, because this was I don't think it's as big now as it was, say, a decade ago, but the suicide thing. Between 2016 and 2022, law enforcement was 54% more likely to commit suicide than the general population.
Sure.
At a rate of a little over 21 officers per 100,000. And over the same period of time, I think around 1,100, 1,200 first responders altogether had taken their own life. So there was a point where felonious acts, car accidents, suicide was actually the number one killer of cops. What did Rock Hill do in response to that, as far as wellness initiatives, trying to make sure their people are okay, especially during that time? Because, like you said before, the retention numbers were hard to navigate, not just for Rock Hill, but for everyone.
No, yeah, you're right. So the thing about the crisis intervention training, it also let you see and know what symptoms are, so you can self-unpack. Another thing that we did, and this was a citywide initiative, was all supervisors went to a mental health first aid training. And we sat down with clinicians and we worked through a manual on how to observe the changes in your personnel, as well as yourself and your buddy, because like I said, it was supervisors. So you more think about levels down, but you have to also think about peer level and levels up. What can you see? What can be exhibited? how do you make sure that you're helping everybody you can when you start seeing these symptoms? Don't turn the blind eye. Don't be like, hey, are you okay? Are you good? And take the yeah. You know, notice the changes. You dig in. You say, no, let's sit down. We use programs like SC Leap. We have them come in. So if we have a critical incident happen, we're trying to get people in right away to talk to our officers to go ahead and start dealing with the crisis that they just witnessed, they were a part of, so that we get them the right resources. We've always had EAP with the city of Rock Hill, but with calling the services in after the critical incident is totally different. EAP is kind of on your own thing, a referral thing, a call-in thing, where we have a critical incident, we can call SC Leap and we'll get counselors to come in, we're going to get peer mentors to come in. We're going to deal with that as well. We're currently looking at all kind of different wellness options, wellness programs. We've been participating in wellness training as well to try to make sure that everybody's in tune with what that looks like, because I like to say the old slogan was, cops deal with people on their worst day. Well, you can choose to deal with people on their best days too. Just get out of the car, take a walk, interact with different people.
That's awesome.
That will help your own mindset, because if all you think about is, well, this next call, somebody's going to be upset, or I'm going to pull this car over for a violation, they're going to be upset. Well, then, yeah, that's going to happen. But if you can think, hey, if I go stop in Cherry Park and just walk and make sure everything's okay, but I see families on the playground and I speak, all right? If I just happen to get out of my car at a convenience store, you know, talk to the clerks, making sure they're okay, that presence right there makes them feel good. Therefore, they're going to engage in that banter and that talk back and forth. You'll talk to people in the parking lot. A lot of our overtime assignments are generally good overtime assignments that we volunteer to work, and you can do that engagement, and that alone will help get you out of the thinking that, man, I'm gonna deal with people on their worst day. Choose to deal with people on their best day as well.
It also improves your perception of the community that you're serving, your role in that. Yeah, that's a great. That's great. I sometimes have to remind us of that in this space too, because again, we are dealing with 1% of 1% of adolescents in the country who have the most top 1% of challenges in the country. So it's this very skewed perception of what's happening. And if you're not careful, it can give you a very pessimistic outlook on the future, on humanity, on all these things, if you're not looking at it from the right angle, or if you don't just get outside and touch grass sometimes and just like get out there. But also, we see people at their lowest, but that also lets you see that redemption arc, which again, I like to say, like, listen, we see a lot of challenging things every week. We also get to be witness to miracles every week. Literally, literal miracles where, like most of the people we serve, and a lot of folks that you serve in your role, just, it's amazing that they're still in the fight, that they're still pushing forward because they have been through a lot of life, but you get to see a lot of resilience. So, but I love that advice about, you don't have to just see the bad stuff. You can walk around and go watch a ball game and just make sure it's safe, but you also get to see how wonderful and beautiful community is. So I love that. That's awesome. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Matt from New Hope, COO. Hope everybody's doing great out there. I don't do a lot of these video talk to phone things because I'm awkward and they're a little awkward sometimes. But I think the last time I did one, we had a big announcement that we were expanding into the state of West Virginia. So I did think, given what I want to share today, that it might be fitting to go ahead and try one. So New Hope is thrilled to be announcing that we are officially expanding into the great state of Tennessee. We are going to be bringing 2 new adolescent treatment programs to Tennessee, hopefully on the outskirts of Nashville, which is an amazing city, to serve some of their youth that right now are unfortunately being served hundreds of miles away from home. Tennessee, like other states, are struggling with that kind of top 1% of high acuity, high risk, high complexity youth. And those are the youth that New Hope wants to lean into. So we are thrilled. The partners that we are working with from the department just could not be better. They are fully aligned with our vision and our values of what good looks like for these kids and how we can do things differently. So we are beyond pumped. We've been talking about this for almost a year and a half, so I'm thrilled to finally announce it. There is a job posting that is live right now for a program director. So if you know somebody in the greater Nashville area or who wants to relocate to the greater Nashville area, please look into that and hit us up, because we want to find an absolute rock star leader to help bring this project to life. So stay tuned. The next 6 to 12 months are going to be super exciting as we find properties, hire staff. Probably about 50 people in general will be joining the New Hope Tennessee team, and it's just awesome to even say New Hope Tennessee. So let's go.
And welcome back. Different setup here. Obviously, Matt had to leave us temporarily for a school pickup, but we're wrapping up here with Officer Michael Chavis. A couple more from me before we conclude. Taking Nate's point earlier, he brought up the glass house analogy, and as recently as a few years ago, I guess really spiked during the height of COVID. I guess the perception of police, and I think social media had a large role in this as well. The perception maybe changed, skewed negatively around police in this country, but that wasn't totally the case. Obviously, the truth obviously is not that. There's a lot of positive going on. You tell me this when you got here. You've obviously been to New Hope numerous times, not just for police work, but just for meetings and whatnot. And we spoke on your relationship with NAMI here in the Rock Hill area. That community relationship, getting out in front of things, doing podcasts like this, getting in front of the camera, being a positive presence in and around the community. How vital is that for police officers, not just in Rock Hill, but throughout this nation?
Well, it's the community, and what I mean by that is just not the people that make up the community; it's the community of being together. And so when everybody shows that they have buy-in about their community, everybody shows that there's a part of it that they play in making it the best they can make it, then there's a mutual understanding and mutual respect and a want to work together, to go forward, to build better. And so that's what we have to do, is we have to get out here. We have to meet people where they're at, whether it's a good day or a bad day. We have to meet people in meetings to talk about, hey, this isn't working, this is working. Hey, this is what I need from you. This is what you need from me. Okay, boom, here's how we meet halfway. You've got to collaborate, because if you don't, everything's just going to tear itself down. We're trying to build it up. We can't do it alone, so therefore we're going to work with you. You're trying to build up. You can't do it alone. Hey, we're here to help you. We're going to build it up.
Love it.
Sometimes the pendulum swings a little bit hard one way or the other. I mean, that my law enforcement career was not nearly as long as yours, but some of the older folks and stuff talked about the state of the world post 9/11 and how first responders, law enforcement were looked at versus what happened within the last decade or so. That scrutiny and living in a glass house. We all knew that that's what we were signing up for. Some of the things around that, not understanding the circumstances and the totality of the thing, and as you said before, the sensationalism. Sometimes, if you went into the actual pockets, got into the community, you understood that most people had an understanding of what the job was rather than what was necessarily being broadcast on their TV. And those community connections were integral to being able to build that. So it's just been interesting to see the involvement that the law enforcement really hasn't changed in the last 20 years as far as who the people are. It's just how frequent they are on TV and that kind of thing. And it's always interesting to talk to folks because America is the melting pot it is. I have recently had a conversation with a gentleman that was not born here. He was born in a South American country, and he talked about, we're talking and getting to know each other and that kind of thing. And he talked about how in his home country, police are viewed one way, and here he goes, it's completely different. So making sure, I think educating the public that, hey, we're not perfect, and not to take away from anybody's experiences, but actually America's pretty far along with their professionalization of police, that if you haven't traveled the world or seen what some other places have to offer, it's just a big difference. And so that professionalism piece, you talk about, you guys have community engagement, you have your mobile crisis unit, you have all these different things. What's one unit that you don't think the Rock Hill Police has that, hey, this is great, because you guys are 160 plus, 162 sworn?
Yep.
That's huge. Most departments across the country are 5 to 10 officers. So what is a unit that maybe the public doesn't know that does a lot of good, that you think, man, this is really it. This is something that is really cool. It's unique to Rock Hill or maybe a few other places.
I honestly, it would go back to our community engagement unit,
Okay.
but also our youth services division. That's comprised of our school resource officers and then our camp director. What I mean by camp director is the Rock Hill Police Department has a summer camp. It's called the Worthy Boys and Girls Summer Camp. And for 5 weeks out of every summer, camp is provided for 32 campers that week, free of charge. And we try and work with the school districts. We work with the Catawba Indian Nation as well to identify kids who are less likely to get a summer vacation. And we identify these kids, they do an application, we get them to the summer camp. All they have to do is they just get to the drop-off location near the police department. We bus them down to our camp. It's fully protected. Our officers run that camp with our officer who's the camp director. And for a full week, we provide them all kind of services to enjoy. And when I say service, I should say activities. Some of our school resource officers and our counselors are certified in archery, so we teach them archery. We have kayak instructors. We have a pond down there, so we teach them how to kayak. We have fish in the pond. We teach them how to fish. And when it's Monday night and it's fishing night, a lot of us other officers just go down there because we're going to be baiting hooks, we're going to be taking fish off, and then we're going to be fishing ourselves. It's always a challenge. I will say this. So it goes boys week, girls week, boys week, girls week, boys week. Girls always outfish the boys. The girls, now they will not bait their hook, they will not take a fish off, but they're more patient. And so they let the hook and the cork sit out there and they reel that fish in and we take it off for them. We take them bowling, we have inflatables come down, we have mountain bikes and mountain bike trails. So that there's so much that we offer them. We have a chapel down there, we offer them chapel services. So, and it's food. We have phenomenal cooks who come down there with a full cafeteria and cook and provide the meals. And so that's one thing that we have that really sets us apart because we run that camp throughout the summer. We provide it free of charge for these kids. We do a big fundraiser every year. The next one's coming up here in May, and it's a fundraiser for the camp. And it's kind of like I don't want to call it a ball or a gala because we've kind of loosened it up. This year's the theme is Boots and Bow Ties. It's more of a Western theme evening of music and food, dance, live auctions, live donations accepted. And so it's this big production that we work on and that unit does throughout the year. And it culminates when we hit June and July and provide this summer camp. And then when it's done, everybody kind of breathes a little bit of sigh of relief because we got through it because it's such an undertaking, but it's also very rewarding because nowhere else can you go and have a department who's really doing something like this. So yeah, we really knocked it out of the box with that. And so I think that is probably the thing that really sets us apart that needs to be highlighted is just how much time and work goes into that summer camp that is provided for those kids free of charge.
What's the age range for that?
And you would ask, I think it's 9 to 12, I think, and then we have a junior counselor program for some of our older kids. But it's all online on our City of Rock Hill Police Department website. The applications are on there, and it tells you everything you need to know about how to apply to get into the summer camp.
Yeah, sounds like something maybe Patrick may. No, I'm kidding.
Fishing, yeah. I mean, why not? I'd jump in. Yeah, of course. I don't know if you have any more. I have one final question at the very end, but if you have any more, feel free to jump in.
I'm gonna ask a kind of fun one. That's gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
Because you've been doing this for a very long time. Very appreciative of your service. Thank you for everything you do for our community. Thank you for jumping on here. This is gonna be kind of a fun one, but most people that are a first responder or anything procedural, the procedural dramas, I know I always cringed at because of, there was a lot of, like Matt said, the Hollywood-esque. Give me the one that you think actually kind of captures what it's actually like.
Oh man, so
you can't sing Andy Griffith.
No. So when I was a detective, me and one of my partners, she was fantastic. She's still there, by the way. She's one of our detective supervisors. We'd have these conversations, and so she would work car break-ins with me. I would work burglaries with her, but we had known each other for a long time. We worked patrol. We got detective division. She came just after I was back there a little while. And so we know each other well, so we sit side by side, we're talking, and we have these conversations, and every now and then you just laugh and giggle. I mean, it's workplace. If you enjoy work, you're going to have a good time. Work is going to be great. And so that's what it is. It's what you make it. And so everybody always asks me, what two police shows what police show is the description of what you say it is. There's two.
Okay.
So the two, no movies, there's never been a movie where I'll be like, that's it. But it's two police shows. The first is Blue Bloods.
Okay.
And the reason why I say Blue Bloods is the way the chain of command, the way the structure of it is, the way that Tom Selleck, runs things for the family, but also as being, the commissioner, with his staff coming in, having the meetings, discussing the hard topics, addressing the issues, even on down to, Danny Reagan being the detective and how he's working to, the patrol officers on the streets. They do a very good job. But then the other show, and everybody laughs at me for this one, but my time in the detective division mirrored this, and it's going to be Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I say that because we actually sat there in the detective division and had one day where we talked about books. How many books have you read? What books have you read? And I sat there and I said, I don't read books. ADHD and ADD, I can't read a book. It's hard, it's difficult. I want to see a pop-up book. I want to see a movie. Like, if you tell me there's a book, there's a movie, I'm the movie guy. Tell me what's different about it in the book.
Yeah.
The very next week, the episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Jake Peralta said, I don't read. And I'm like, do they have our office bugged? Like, literally, do they have our office bugged? And then we had a guy who was part of our detective division that kind of reminded you of Boyle. He was a little bit quirky, a little bit odd. He would work hard.
Yeah.
But, he just had that personality. And the partner I'm talking about, her name was Amy. And so everything just aligned to where it felt like Brooklyn Nine-Nine was trying to mirror what we were experiencing in Rock Hill Police Department.
Andy Sandberg was listening in.
Yeah, they had us bugged.
Must have been. Wrapping up here, final question, and you're certainly doing this throughout the course of this interview, but this is your chance to, I guess, encapsulate your overall message, the things that are most important to you. So for you, what is the stuff that matters?
So what is the stuff that matters for me being here is, it boils down to one thing. When I think about what truly matters, why am I here? Why are you guys here and the roles you are in? When it comes to mental health, and you can call it an illness, an issue, a crisis, a disorder, I don't care how you want to define it, what you want to call it as. But the one thing that matters most to me is stigma. And what I mean by that is there's so much stigma about mental health issues and mental health crisis that people don't understand, and that we need to remove that stigma for. Because just because you have that mental health issue, the crisis, and it could be a long-term crisis, a short-term crisis, you have a disorder related to mental health, there's no stigma with it. We've got to remove it because that makes people feel less than. And when somebody feels less than, they don't strive, they don't thrive. And so every time you hear that, and it's like, man, stop beating up mental health, because you're indirectly beating up the person. Take the stigma away, because we're all just one incident away from having something happen. PTSD is based on life experiences. And you don't know what the trigger's going to be, and then, man, you got it. Now, it's 100% treatable. And people need to understand that. I didn't say curable, but I said treatable. Because you take away the stigma of it, and you go and you open up and you start unpacking it and getting down to the layers of what happened and what you're dealing with, and you get that treatment and you're good. And you can get back to the person that you wanted to be, or that you were before it happened. And a lot of the others are just like that as well. You get it unpacked, and then you can get it treated. And you can go back to living that productive and happy life. But when you hear people talk about mental health like it's some kind of adverse thing that you're never going to overcome, you start believing it. And so what matters to me is stigma and taking it away and just eradicating it, so that we all can embrace one another for all that we have to offer, all that we may be lacking that we can improve on, and all that we can do to make somebody else better.
Excellent. Wow, that's really impactful. speaking for the both of us, and obviously Matt too, we thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your knowledge, your insight, everything you're doing in and around the community. Some things we didn't even touch on today. We've had this Hurt poster here the entire time. We didn't even get into that yet. Your short film debut was made last year. You were part of our production here, Hurt. So yeah, there's a lot we certainly could touch on. We'll probably have to have a part 2 at some point, but we just appreciate you taking the time today, and thank you so much.
No, I do. I appreciate you guys inviting me here. I appreciate all that you've done, even the Hurt that we didn't get to talk about. I watched it. I went to the premiere, and I wasn't prepared. Even being part of it, I wasn't prepared. I was there.
You're right.
But at the end and the culmination, everything's coming together. Man, I'm getting a little choked up now thinking about how I felt that night when I watched it, because it did something to me where I was like, holy cow, they truly embodied their character and their roles. And I got entranced in the movie and watched the story play out. And it showed a side of things that I think everybody should see. And I was glad to be part of that as well. But no, I'm more than willing to come back. We'll get the schedules lined up.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to. I'm sure we'll see you at some point down the road at another community event. We got a bunch of other things lined up here in the coming months. So I'm sure we'll see you soon. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.